Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Jai Bhim and Namo Buddhaya to all of you. Today we will be continuing to study the part 3, the book 5 of the Buddha and His Dhamma. And part is about the duties of the bhikshu or bhikkhu. And the part 3 is divided into 4 subparts. The subpart number 1, the bhikkhu's duty to convert. Second, conversion not to be by miracles. 3, conversion not to be by force. And 4, a bhikkhu must fight to spread virtue or dhamma. So what we are going to do today is we are going to go through the part 3. And as we have seen in the previous class that Dr. Baba Ambedkar has compared what is called the bhikkhu and ascetic, the bhikkhu and Brahmin, the bhikkhu and upasaka. And in the continuation of the same sort of exploration as to what is a bhikkhu and what constitute the duties of the bhikkhu. So what I'm going to do, because it's a small part, I'm going to read through and going to gloss over some of the important points that are therein in this particular part 3. So let's begin with the subpart 1, the bhikkhu's duty to convert. So as it's clear from this title that the duty of the bhikkhu is to convert people, is to bring people into the teaching of the Buddha. And it begins like this: the news of the conversion of Yasa and his 4 friends to the Dhamma spread far and wide. So we have seen this episode in the life of the Buddha that very early on, Yasa or Yasha was, became the follower of the Buddha. And his friends also became the followers of the Buddha. And then their friends, which were like, 60 number, they also became the followers of the Buddha. And when the people came to know about this news that Yasa has converted to the Buddha's Dhamma, the result was that lay persons belonging to the highest families in the country and to those next to the highest came to be instructed in the doctrine of the Blessed One and to take refuge in him and his Dhamma. So that's how it came to, when people realize that people like Yasha and others are becoming the Buddhist, or they are embracing the path of the Buddha. So many people were coming to him to receive instruction in the Dhamma. So many people started coming to the Buddha to receive the instruction of the Dhamma. The Lord knew that it was difficult for him personally to give instruction to each other. He also felt the necessity of organizing parivrajaks, whose number was swelling every day into a religious order, which he called the Sangha. And we have seen that the Buddha organized the disorganized body of the parivrajak into Sangha. And every day on, the people who wanted to be instructed in the Buddha's Dhamma, the number of them was increasing. So he accordingly made the Parivrajakas the members of the Sangha and framed rules of discipline called Vinaya and made them binding upon the members of the Sangha. And therefore, the Buddha constituted the Parivrajak into a Sangha, and then he made the rules called the rules of Vinaya and made them binding upon the members of the Sangha. The Blessed Lord later on laid down 2 stages to be undergone by a disciple before he became a bhikkhu. So it's 2 stages. It's not a one stage process. It's a 2 stages process. And we have seen in the previous sections, previous parts, as to what these 2 stages constitute of. First, a disciple became a parivrajak and remained a parivrajak for a certain number of years, attached to a bhikkhu and remaining in training under him. After his training period was over, he was allowed to take upasampada. So only when the training period is over, a bhikkhu, the person was allowed to take upasampada if he satisfied a body of examiners that he was fit for it. So there was a body of examiner who formed a core of letting the people enter into the Sangha. And if the body of the examiner was satisfied that, this person is fit to enter the Sangha, they were allowed to have the Upasampada. It is only then that he was allowed to become a bhikkhu and a member of the Sangha. There was no time in the early stages of the Dhamma to make such arrangements. The Lord therefore made them bhikkhus and sent them out as missionaries to spread his religion to anywhere and everywhere. So the first converts to Buddhism were, trained by the Lord Buddha, and he encouraged them to go out in all directions, everywhere, to spread the Dhamma. Now you see, a lot of people have a problem with the word mission and missionary. But if you look at the history of the world, we can see that the Buddha's disciples were like the first kinds of the messengers. If we don't like the word missionary, the Duta or the messengers. And there is a very beautiful word in Buddhism called Dhammadutta, means the messengers of the Dhamma. And the Dhammadutta is somebody who has a duty to spread the Dhamma. Likewise, if we look at the Ashokan history, we know that Ashoka had created the special departments to spread out the teachings of the Buddha, and he has the special ministers appointed to that effect all over the Indian subcontinent and beyond, up to the Greece. And they have had a duty to see to it that the people practice the correct Dhamma, and the correct Dhamma is spread all over the places. So you see this sort of Buddha's encouragement to be the messengers of Dhamma, or to use the word that has come from the Christian tradition, the missionaries, is very important. And this word is very interesting. This is verse number 6, which I'm going to read through now. And before sending them out, the Blessed One said to the bhikkhus, I am delivered, O bhikkhus, from all fetters, human and divine. You, O bhikkhus, from all fetters, human and divine. You see, the Buddha is saying that I'm free. I'm a free human being. I'm a free man who is free from all the fetters, human and divine. Isn't it? And he's also asserting something which is very important for all of us who practice the Buddha's Dhamma, is that the Buddha is saying that to his disciple, that you also bhikshus or bhikkhus are free from all fetters. So they are also delivered. They are also free. So the people Buddha taught are also free like the Buddha. They are not bounded by, they are not slaves to any fetters. And we have seen the discussion on fetters in the previous classes as to what constitute the fetters. Go now and wander for the gain of many, for the welfare of the many, out of compassion for the world, for good, for the gain, and for the welfare of gods and men. You see, Charata Bhikkave Charikang, Bhojan Hitaya, Bhojan Sukhaya, Lokanukampaya. So, if you look at this particular verse, which occurred in the very beginning of the Buddha's career, when he taught his disciples, he asked them, he told them that, I am free, you are also free. I'm as, you are as free as I am. And this is, I think, is a great thing in Buddhism, that, the disciples of the Buddha becomes the same, free like him. Isn't it? Right? That's a great promise of the Buddha, that, if we practice according to what the Buddha taught, we are all surely, we will be delivered to the freedom, we will be free. And the Buddha further says that go now. So he says, now go. Now, once you are free, you go. What do you do when you're free? You go now and wander for the gain of many. You charata bhikkave charikam. Wander for the gain of many. Bahujana hitaya. Bahujana sukhaya. For the welfare of the many. And why do we do it? Out of compassion for the world. And there is a beautiful word in Pali called Lokanukampaya. In English, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. And in Pali, there is one word, Lokanukampaya, vibrating with the world. Because you feel compassion for the world. Because you are the part of the world. So Bhikshu is not out of the world. Bhikshu is very much vibrating with the world. So go now and wander for the gain of the many, for the welfare of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the good, kalyan, for the gain, and for the welfare of gods and man. And the 7th is very interesting. The verse number 7 is also very interesting. Let not 2 of you go the same way. So the 2 of you should not go the same way. Preach, bhikkhus, the doctrine which is glorious in the beginning, glorious in the middle, glorious at the end, in the spirit and in the later. Proclaim a consummate, perfect, and pure life of holiness. So these verses are very important. The duty, as Baba Ambedkar says, of the Buddhist is to teach, is to spread the Dhamma, isn't it? And Baba Ambedkar goes on further saying, to spread the teachings of the Buddha is the real service to the mankind. That's what Baba Ambedkar says further. And if we look at these two words, that the duty of the good Buddhist is to spread the word of the Buddha, and secondly, to spread the Buddha Dhamma is to serve the humankind. If we take these words together, this perfectly sits with the Buddha's first sort of encouragement to his disciples to go out in the world and spread the Dhamma. Go then through every country, convert those not yet converted, throughout the world that lies burnt up with sorrow, teach everywhere those lacking right instruction. Go where there are great rishis, royal rishis, Brahmin rishis too. These all dwell there, influencing men according to their schools. He says that go and talk to every school about the truth. Instruct everybody who is not instructed properly. Go therefore, each one traveling by himself, filled with compassion, go, rescue and receive. Wow. You see, this is how the Buddha encourages his disciples, rescue and receive. The blessed Lord also told him that the gift of the Dhamma exceeds all gifts. The sweetness of the Dhamma exceeds all sweetness. The delight in the Dhamma exceeds all delights. The fields are damaged by which mankind is damaged by passion. Therefore, a gift of Dhamma brings great reward. The fields are damaged by weeds. Mankind is damaged by hatred. Therefore, a gift of Dhamma brings great reward. The fields are damaged by weeds. Mankind is damaged by vanity. Therefore, the gift of the Dhamma brings great reward. The fields are damaged by weeds. Mankind is damaged by lust. Therefore, a gift of Dhamma brings great reward. Then the 60 bhikkhus, receiving orders to carry on the mission to propagate the Dhamma, went through every land. The Lord gave them further instructions in the matter of conversions. So you see, this is how the Buddha's Dhamma operates. If we begin to teach others, we begin to get a lot of clarity. And therefore, I have been always encouraging from the day one of the class that whatever you know, just share with others, teach others, instruct others, so that others can benefit from the words of the Buddha, because the words of the Buddha are so beneficial to the humankind. As Baba Ambedkar said, to spread Buddhism is to serve mankind. And that's what we can see here in the beautiful encouragement that the Buddha has given to his bhikkhus. So the Buddhism is by the core a teaching that has to be spread throughout the world. And now we are going to look at something very interesting, that the Buddha has instructed his disciple to instruct others in the teachings of the Buddha, but he says that what not to do and how not to do, and that forms the next subsections of this section. So let me look at it. The subsection 2, conversion not to be by miracles. So the Buddha said that don't convert people by showing the miracles. And then the Buddha has instructed accordingly. The exalted one was once staying among the Mallas at Anapiya, one of their towns. Now the exalted one, having robed himself, put on his cloak and took his bowl and entered the town for alms. The blessed one thought, it's too early for me to now go through Anapiya for alms. I might go to the pleasance where Bhagava, the wanderer, dwells and call upon him. So the Buddha thought that it's too early, so let me go and see Bhagava. Then Bhagava spake thus to the exalted one, let my lord, the exalted one, come near. Welcome to the exalted one. It is long since the exalted one has taken the opportunity to come to our way. May it please you, sir, to be seated. Here is a seat made ready. The exalted one sat down thereon, and Bhagava, taking a certain low stool, sat down beside him. So seated, Bhagava, the wanderer, spake thus to the exalted one. Some days ago, Lord Sunakhatta of the Lichavis called on me and spake thus. I have now given up the exalted one, Bhagava. I am remaining no longer under him as my teacher. Is the fact really so? So there was a person, Sunakhatta, and there is a Sunakhatta Sutta also, who left the Buddha and he said that I no longer follow him or no longer consider him as my teacher. So even at the time of the Buddha, there were people who left the Buddha, and they start not considering him as a teacher. So it is not just so, Bhagava, as Sunakhatta of the Lichavi said. Some days ago, Bhagava, a good many days ago, Sunakhatta the Lichavi came to call on me and spake thus: Sir, I now give up the exalted one. I will henceforth remain no longer under him as my teacher. When he told me this, I said to him, But now, Sunakhatta, have I ever said to you, Come, Sunakhatta, live under me as my pupil? No, sir, you have not, replied Sunakhatta. Or have you ever said to me, Sir, I would fain dwell under the exalted one as my teacher? No, sir, I have not, said Sunakhatta. But if I said not the one, and you said not the other, what are you, and what am I that you talk of giving up? Well, but sir, the exalted one works with me, no mystic wonders, surpassing the power of the ordinary men. Why now, Sunakhatta, have I ever said to you, Come, take me as your teacher, Sunakhatta, and I will work for you mystic wonders, surpassing the power of ordinary men? You have not, sir. That's what Sunakhatta said. Or have you ever said to me, Sir, I would fain take the exalted one as my teacher, for he will work for me mystic wonders beyond the powers of ordinary men? I have not, sir. So Sunakhatta was expecting some kind of a miraculous things to happen from the Buddha, some mystical things to happen from the Buddha. And therefore, he said that because he has not witnessed any miraculous power of the Buddha, he has left the Buddha as a teacher. But the Buddha says, in the first instance, I have not accepted you as a disciple, and you have not accepted me as your teacher, isn't it? So Buddha is saying that there was no compact like this between you and me, and I have never promised that I will work out some mystical wonders for you. And that is what is the greatness of the Buddha. Buddha was the teacher par excellence. He never wanted to convert anyone with the miracles. Buddha had, it is said, tremendous power because he has cultivated his mind to the highest level possible. And the Buddha never believed in converting anybody by the force of miracles. So the Buddha says that I have never promised you that, Sunakhatta, that I will do some kind of a miracle for you. So whether mystic wonders beyond the power of ordinary men are wrought, or whether they are not, is not the subject for which I teach Dhamma. This, that it leads to the true destruction of ill for the doer thereof. Whether, sir, they are wrought or not, that is indeed the object for which the norm is taught by the exalted one. But Bhagava, Sunakhatta went on to saying to me, Sir, the exalted one does not reveal to me the beginning of the things. So he's saying that the Buddha has not revealed me the beginning of the truth. And the people are obsessed, as we have seen in the previous discussions in the Buddha and His Dhamma, like the questions of Pottapada, that, or Malukya Putta, that people are obsessed, like Sunakhatta, with the beginning. They want to know the beginning of things. They want to know how the world has come into existence. So Sunakhatta says that exalted one has not revealed to me the beginning of the things. Why now, Sunakhatta, have I ever said to you, Come, Sunakhatta, be my disciple, and I will reveal to you the beginning of the thing. So Buddha has never promised that he will reveal the beginning of the things. Sir, I have not. But if I have not said the one, and you have not said the other, what are you, and what am I, foolish man, that you talk of giving up on that account? What you, Sunakhatta, whether the beginning of the things be revealed, or whether it be not, is the object for which I teach the Dhamma this, that it leads to the destruction of ills for the doer thereof. So he says, the Buddha says, keep on saying that, the Dhamma I teach, I instruct, is conducive to the welfare. It reduces the ill doings of the people. So whether, sir, they are revealed or not, that is indeed the object for which the Dhamma is taught by the exalted one. If then, Sunakhatta, it matters not to that object whether the beginning of the things be revealed, or whether it be not, of what use to you would it be to have the beginning of the things revealed? The Buddha says, even if you know the beginning of the thing, what use is that for you? In many ways have you, Sunakhatta, spoken my praises among the Vajjins. In many ways have you, Sunakhatta, spoken the praises of the Dhamma among the Vajjins. In many ways have you, Sunakhatta, spoken the praises of the order among the Vajjins. Yes, I tell you, Sunakhatta, I make known to you that there will be those that shall say concerning you this: Sunakhatta of the Lichavis was not able to live the holy life under the Gautama, the recluse, and he, not being able to adhere to it, has renounced the discipline and turned to the lower things. That's what the people are going to say. Thus Bhagava, did Sunakatta of the Lichavis, addressed by me, depart from this doctrine and discipline as one doomed to disaster. And soon after leaving the doctrine and discipline of the Buddha, Sunakatta started telling people that there was nothing superhuman about the Buddha's ennobling gifts of the knowledge and insight. That it was his own reasoning which had hammered out a doctrine of his own evolving and of his personal invention, such that whoso hears it preached for his good has only to act up to it to be guided to the utter ending of ill. Although Sunakatta was slandering the Buddha, what he was telling people was true, for the Buddha never resorted to the superhuman or miraculous in propagating his Dhamma. You see, the Buddha never resorted to any superhuman or any miracle in propagating his Dhamma. The Buddha taught the truth. He was the teacher of the truth, as Baba Ambedkar says elsewhere. He taught the truth. He was the teacher of the truth. He never needed any miraculous power to convert the people. He never needed any superhuman things to convert the people. He was, as Baba Ambedkar says, he was the Margadatta and he was not the Mokshadatta. He could show the path, out of suffering. He could show the path to freedom. And therefore, the Buddha taught his disciples not to convert anybody by miraculous, events. In other words, not to practice the miracles to convert the people to Buddhism. So the Buddha also told not to convert by force. The Buddha says that you cannot convert people by force. And here is a dialogue. The Blessed One was once going along the high road between Rajagraha and Nalanda with a great company of the brethren, and with about 500 brethren. The Supiya, the mendicant, too was going along the high road between Rajagraha and Nalanda with his disciple, the youth Brahmadatta. And there is a dialogue between Brahmadatta and Buddha, which is very interesting. And the Brahmadatta begins by praising the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And they say that the teacher and the pupil, holding opinions in direct contradiction to the other, were following step by step after the Blessed One and the company of the brethren. So the Brahmadatta was in awe of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, and Supiya was not. His own teacher was not. So they had a discussion, and the Blessed One, on realizing what was the drift of their talk, went to the pavilion and took his seat on the mat spread out for him. And when he had sat down, he said, "What is the talk on which you are engaged sitting here? And what is the subject of the conversation between you?" And they told him, and he said, "Brethren, if outsiders should speak against me or against a doctrine or against the order, you should not on that account either bear malice or suffer heart burning or feel ill will." Very profound, very important, because people are going to castigate, people are going to speak wrong, people are going to speak against the Buddha, the people are going to speak against the doctrine, and the people are going to speak against the Sangha. The people are going to slander the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. The Buddha says, if you hear that, on that account, you will not bear malice or suffer hurt burning or feel ill will. Very interesting. The Buddha says that your approach when people castigate the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, you should not bear malice or suffer hurt burning or feel ill will. If you on that account should be angry and hurt, that would stand in the way of your own self-conquest. The Buddha says that even you meet people like that who slander you, or you slander the triple gems, if we become angry, then we stand in our own ways to our own self-conquest. So we should not be swayed away by the people's praise or the people's malice towards the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. If an other speaks against us, you feel angry at that and displeased, would you then be able to judge for that speech of theirs is well said or ill? So he says, when you are angry, when a person is angry, they are not able to judge. And there is a direct correlation between the anger and the judgment. If we are angry, we are not able to judge properly. So the Buddha says, you will not be able to judge what is their intention, whether they are meaning good or bad, if you get angry. So the Buddha says that don't get angry, you will lose the power to judge. But when outsiders speak in dispraise of me or of the doctrine or of the order, you should unravel what is false and point it out as wrong, saying, for this or that reason, this is not the fact. That is not so. Such a thing is not found among us, is not in us. Very beautiful. The Buddha says that you listen to them, you listen to their criticisms, don't react with anger, you try to understand what they want to say, and you point out that this is false and this is wrong, and this is not to be found among us. So this is what is the approach of the Buddha. But also, brethren, outsiders may speak in praise of me, in praise of the doctrine, in praise of the order. What are the things when they would say praising me, you would say? He may say, putting away the killing of living things, Gautama the recluse holds aloof from the destructions of life. He has laid the cudgel and the sword aside, and ashamed of roughness and full of mercy, he dwells compassionate and kind to all creatures that have life. It is thus that the unconverted man, when speaking in praise of the Buddha, might speak. Or he might say, putting away the taking of what has not been given, Gautama the recluse lived aloof from grasping what is not his own. He takes only what is given, and expecting that gifts will come, he passes his life with honesty and purity of heart. Or he may say, putting away unchastity, Gautama the recluse is chaste. He holds himself aloof, far from the vulgar practice, from sexual act. Or he may say, putting away lying words, Gautama the recluse holds himself aloof from falsehood. He speaks truth. From the truth he never soars. Faithful and trustworthy, he breaks not his words to the world. Or he might say, putting away slander, Gautama the recluse holds himself aloof from calumny. What he hears, here he repeats not elsewhere to raise a quarrel among the people here. What he hears elsewhere, he repeats not here to raise a quarrel against the people there. Thus does he live as a binder together of those who are divided, as encourager of those who are friends, a peacemaker, a lover of peace, impassioned for peace, a speaker of words that make for peace. You see how beautifully this is. This is like, explaining that the Buddha practices 5 precepts. He encourages the 5 precepts. He wants to he creates the harmony in the people. He creates the peace. He is the lover of peace. Or he might say, putting away rudeness of speech, Gautama the recluse holds himself aloof from harsh language. Whatsoever word is blameless, pleasant to the ear, lovely, reaching to the heart, urbane, pleasing to the people, beloved of the people, such are words he speaks. Or he might say, putting away frivolous talk, Gautama the recluse holds himself aloof from the vain conversation. In season, he speaks in accordance with the fact, words full of meaning, on religion, on the discipline of the order. He speaks, and at the right time, words worthy to be laid up in one's heart, fitly illustrated, clearly divided to the point. You see how the Buddha teaches. If we unravel every single word of it, it describes the quality of the Buddha, the great teacher of the humanity. And that's how the people will praise the Buddha for how he talks. He never talks the wrong things. He talks in the context. He talks pleasingly. He talks, he never indulges into vain conversation. And he speaks according to the time, according to the fact. His words are full of meaning. His words are always about the Dhamma. His words are always about the Vinaya. And, he talks in a way that doesn't divide the people. It brings the people together. He creates the peace. He creates the harmony. That's how the Buddha is. Reading on further, or he may say, Gautama the recluse holds himself aloof from causing injury or to seeds or plants. He takes but 1 meal a day, no eating at night, refraining from food after hours. He refrains from being a spectator at shows, at fairs, with nautch, dances, singing and music. He abstains from wearing, adorning, or ornamenting himself with garlands, scents, and unguents. He abstains from the use of large and lofty beds. He abstains from accepting silver or gold. He abstains from accepting uncooked grain. He abstains from accepting women or girls. He abstains from accepting bond men and bond women. He abstains from accepting sheep or goats. He abstains from accepting fowls or swine. He abstains from accepting elephants and cattle, horses and mares. He abstains from accepting cultivated fields or waste. He abstains from acting as a go-between or messenger. He abstains from buying and selling. He abstains from cheating with scales or bronzes or measures. He abstains from the crooked ways of bribery, cheating, and fraud. He abstains from maiming, murder, putting in bond, highway robbery, dacoity, and violence. See, you see, if you want to know how the Buddha or the followers of the Buddha should behave or should act, this section is so important. It clears out everything about how one teaches the Buddha's Dhamma. Not by force. The Buddha says, never convert the people by force. Now, the last verse goes like this: such are the things, brethren, which an unconverted man, when speaking in praise of the Tathagata, might say, but you should not even on that account be filled with pleasure or gladness or be lifted up in heart. If somebody praises the Buddha Dhamma, we are not supposed to make our heart sway. We are supposed to remain, rational. If there is a wrong praise, we are also supposed to point it out that it's a wrong praise. But you should not even on that account be filled with pleasure or gladness or be lifted up in heart, where you to be so that also would stand in the way of your self-conquest. So Buddha says, when you are trying to conquest yourself, you are not to be swayed by the praise or blame. There are four pairs of the 8 worldly winds. And the Buddha says, don't be shaken by the worldly winds. Somebody is going to praise you, somebody is going to disparage you, sometimes we are going to gain, sometimes we are going to lose. Sometimes, people will praise us, sometimes will be going to, blame us. Sometimes people are going to, we are going to gain something, sometimes we are going to lose something. So the Buddha says that, on that account, we are not supposed to sway, because if we sway, we will stand in our own way of self-conquest. So on our quest for the self-conquest, we are not supposed to get swayed by the 4 worldly winds. And that is true about when people talk about Dhamma. When they praise the Dhamma, we are not supposed to sway. When they disparage the Dhamma, we are not supposed to sway. Just by keeping our mind angerless, we are supposed to tell them what is the truth and what is the false. I think this is applicable everywhere. All the domains of life. We are not supposed to, lose our tranquility. We are not supposed to lose our logic, our rationality. So now to come to the end of the class today, this is the end of this part 3, but this is, I think, is a very, 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 very important teaching of the Buddha that has been included here. Very important of 7 verses and very powerful. They are actually the charters of what the bhikshu should do. In other words, what the followers of the Buddha should do. This is like the guidelines for them. And this is very beautifully put by the Buddha and very beautifully worded here by Baba Saheb Ambedkar. I'm going to read it and I'm going to bring out the very important points of that. So the subsection 4 is titled as a bhikkhu must fight to spread the Dhamma. So the duty of the bhikshu or the duty of the Buddha's disciple is to fight to spread the virtue. Now, this seems contradictory. Previously, we have seen that the Buddha has said that don't be swayed by the praise and the blame. Just explain the things rationally. Just explain the things as they are. Just, instruct the people on the Dhamma without resorting to miracles or without resorting to superhuman or by force. And here the Buddha is saying that a bhikkhu must fight to spread the virtue. And it looks contradictory from the surface, but it is not. It's very beautifully put here. In other words, the Buddha says that we should be like the fighters. We should be active in spreading the Buddha's Dhamma. We should be like, great warriors. So we should have this warrior, the spirit of the warrior when it comes to spreading the Dhamma. And it's explained so beautifully here in the 7 verses. Now, listen very carefully. Addressing the bhikkhus, the Lord once said, "It is not I, O disciples, that quarrel with the world," said the Lord, "but the world that quarrels with me. A teacher of the truth does not quarrel with anyone in the world." So the Buddha says that everything is resolved for me. I can see the way it is. I can be the way it should be. The Buddha says that everything is resolved for me. Everything is crystal clear to me. And if we bring in the Buddha's teaching of anatma, there is nothing for the Buddha to praise himself egoistically towards people. Because the Buddha has realized the egolessness of his own being. The Buddha has realized anatma. The Buddha has no axe to grind with the others. The Buddha has, in other words, the Buddha has nothing to teach. The Buddha has just to point out the ways to the truth. Isn't it? And we have seen in so many of the suttas, the Buddha says like this, that he has nothing to teach. He has only the path to be shown. In other words, the people have just to practice the Buddha's Dhamma. There is nothing to teach. And it accords with the teaching of the Shunyata, isn't it? Even the words, the philosophies, they are just the means. They are just the operational concepts pointing out to the freedom, to the deliverance. And likewise, the Buddha says in the verse number 2 here, it is not I, O disciples, that quarrel with the world. I have no quarrel with the world. I have nothing to fight with the world, said the Lord, but the world that quarrels with me, because the world holds so much of the michhaditti, so much of the views, so much of the ideologies in their minds that they quarrel with the Buddha. And the Buddha says, a teacher of the truth does not quarrel with anyone in the world. The Buddhists have no quarrel with the world because they have nothing to prove. They have nothing to demonstrate. They have nothing to hold on to, words, books, or anything. The Buddha says, let it go. Ultimately, we have to let everything go. Isn't it? All the conceptual frameworks or the ideologies, even the Buddha says the Dhamma is like a raft to carry us from this shore to another shore. Once you are to that shore, you have to leave it behind. You cannot carry the raft when you have crossed the other shore. You see, that's the beauty of the Buddha. The Buddha says, even don't be attached to my Dhamma. Use it, practice it, realize through it the ultimate truth of the Nibbana. And verse number 2, I'm going to read it again. It is not I, O disciples, that quarrel with the world, said the Lord, but the world that quarrels with me, a teacher of the truth, does not quarrel with anyone in the world. Warriors, Lord, we call ourselves. In what way then are we warriors? We call ourselves the warriors. We are the warriors. That's what we say, Lord. The Bhikshu says, in what way then we are warriors? Then very beautifully the Buddha explains, we wage war. We also fight. Just like Baba Ambedkar said, this is the battle for freedom. This is the battle. Likewise, the Buddha says, we wage war, O disciples, therefore we called warriors. Because we also fight. That's why we are also called the warriors. Wherefore, Lord, do we wage war? What for we fought? We fight. That's what the disciple asks. Now the verse number 6 goes on like this. For lofty virtues, for high endeavor, for sublime wisdom. 3 things. For the Shila, high endeavor, for sublime wisdom, prajna, for these things do we wage war. Therefore, we are called warriors. That's why we are called warriors, because we fight for this. When virtue is in danger, when the Shila is in danger, when ethics is in danger, when virtue is in danger, do not avoid fighting. Do not be mealy-mouthed. Do not just provide lip service. Do not speak just, be mealy-mouthed. Fight, struggle. That's what the Buddha says. Exert. Appa madena sampadet. The last word of the Buddha says, Charat, Vaya Dhamma Sankhara, Appa madena sampadet. Strive with diligence. And we have seen how Baba Ambedkar has beautifully explained all this in the previous sections. This section is therefore very important as to what is the duty of the Buddhist. The duty of the Buddhist, the follower of the Buddha, is to preach and propagate the Buddha's Dhamma, because that is the only service to the humanity. That is the greatest service to the humanity that one can offer. That's what Baba Ambedkar says. And in order to preach the Dhamma, we cannot be mealy-mouthed. We have to be like warriors. We have to make efforts to reach out to the people. We have to listen to them. We have to talk to them. We have to make them understand the Dhamma. We have to instruct them in the Dhamma so that they are delivered from the sea of suffering. So I think this is very clear that the Buddha has asked his followers to teach the Dhamma, to instruct the people, to spread the Dhamma, but do not resort to force or do not resort to miracles. But it's the duty of the Buddha's disciples, the bhikkhus, the laymen, all these people to spread the teachings of the Buddha. So I will stop here and I will open up the class for any discussion or any comments. So anybody has?
Buddha's disciples have been called warriors because they have to preach the Dhamma to the people, and while teaching Dhamma, the people may blame also Buddha or his Dhamma.
Hmm.
So the disciples should not be angry,
Mhm.
because if one becomes angry, then he doesn't know what is right and wrong, what is true and false. And he loses the wisdom.
Hmm.
So it is, he is called warrior
Mhm.
because he has to control his passions and is the Dhamma, what God will, what is personally told by Buddha.
Excellent, excellent. Anybody? Anyone has any comments or anything to offer?
So he,
Yeah, in one of the previous classes, we had a subject and we discussed about this phrase that Bahujan Hitaye, Bahujan Sikhaye.
Yeah.
And in this text, actually, it is very clear that Bahujan means as many as.
Mhm.
Means in today's word, that meaning is something different. But
Mhm.
if we read today's text, it is clear that as many as people means it is the capacity of that bhikkhu, means whatever his biggest capacity, he should reach to the masses.
Hmm.
So that is the meaning of Bahujan. So that is very interesting, I found.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, there is no end to teaching, isn't
Yep,
it? So,
correct.
all the time till our death, we keep on teaching or instructing the people, it's not going to exhaust. So,
Yes,
in that way, it's an attitude of, not getting tired, because there is always somebody to be taught. There is always
correct.
somebody to be reached.
Yeah, it's very comprehensive.
Very
Yes.
complicated.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not just means, the many people. It means that, you should have the attitude that there is no end to teaching the Dhamma.
yeah. Means the Bahujan is not the community. It means like today we are having something different sense of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything on our class today? You see how when we keep on studying it, a lot of things becoming very easy, and very clear. Like, the discussion with Brahmadatta or Sunakhatta, and they are all important suttas in Buddhism. And but the way Baba Sahib Ambedkar has, rearranged it in the Buddha and His Dhamma to make certain points, bring out certain elements, key elements of the sutta, and employ them to educate the modern man and the women as to how they should practice the Buddha's Dhamma. And things are very clear that it's duty of the Buddhist is to share with others. Dhamma danang, sabba danang, dhamma danang ginati. So of all the givings, the highest giving is the giving of the Dhamma. And likewise here, the Buddha encourages us to share the Dhamma with other people, and share because Dhamma ultimately ensures that the people are free from any bondage, mental bondage, or the bondage of passions. So I think when we study the Buddha and His Dhamma, every part of it with this attitude of learning more and more, you see this part 3 is about the duties of the bhikkhu. But if we look into it, we see so much depth of the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha says that I might be praised, or the Dhamma might be praised, or the Sangha might be praised because I follow the 5 precepts. And he goes on telling, what is Dhamma, what is this Dhamma, and it goes on talking about the Buddha himself as to how the Buddha is, isn't it? And the words that the Buddha has used, like a lover of peace, impassioned for peace, a speaker of the words that make for peace. You see, one phrase, a speaker of words that make for peace. If you look at our words, many a times they are dividing. They cause so much problem in the world. They cause so much suffering in the world. But you look at the Buddha. The Buddha is always trying to relieve the humanity of the suffering. He's trying to relieve the humanity of the conflicts. He's trying to relieve the humanity of any divisions. So he speaks in a way always that he never repeats what he heard here, there. What he heard there, here. He's not the divider of the people. He's a person who always harmonize. He always brings the people together, isn't it? And that's how it should be. And the Buddha says that, his Dhamma is the Dhamma of the warriors. We cannot be just sitting idle. We cannot be just doing nothing. Isn't it? Though we have nothing to teach, because ultimately there is nothing to teach, we have to make efforts to tell people what is right and what is wrong. We have to instruct the people in the Buddha's teachings, because we know that that's how the people are going to be liberated. That's how the people are going to attain to the highest happiness of Nibbana, because we ourselves are very sure about it. So you see, this is a very beautiful, the way Baba Ambedkar has brought in various elements of various suttas together and try to explain to us, instruct us, as to how we should be. And I find it very interesting, as I said again and again, to dwell deep into various sections of the Buddha and His Dhamma. So if we have nothing more to share, we might end our class today, unless somebody has something to share. So thank you so much for joining in all today, and we will all see each other next week. Thank you so much. Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim.
Thank you. Jai Bhim.